everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is the first video of mine that you are seeing. If you are new here, my name is Julia Kelsey. I'm 25 years old. I live in Orlando, Florida, and I have a budgeting and money management coaching business that I originally started on Instagram, but have recently moved over to YouTube as well. And this is where I show others that budgeting and money management can be simple and actually enjoyable, and help them get to a place where they are easily accomplishing their financial goals while still being able to live a life that they enjoy at the same time. So today's going to be another exciting video. Today we are going to be doing our first monthly budget recap. So I've done a couple budget with me's on my channel. I've done one for January and then one for February, where I walked you through what my budget looked like at the beginning of a month and kind of what my expectations for the month ahead were. But now that January is over, I want to walk you through my final budget and kind of how everything played out and if there was any changes between the two and why. So similarly to my budget with me's, I'm going to walk you through my entire budget spreadsheet, but this time showing you what the actual numbers were compared to budgeted numbers. And I just wanted to point out something a little different about this particular budget recap that won't normally be the case. So if you are coming from my January budget with me video, I filmed that a week or two before January actually began so that I could film it before I went home for the holidays. And as tends to happen when you do things early, things ended up changing between those couple of weeks, particularly the estimated income that I was using for my entire budget. So when comparing the two, the estimated income does look slightly different, which then flows through and causes changes in a couple areas within the expenses, which makes sense since we're using a zero-based budget. The expenses has to equal the amount of income I have. So when the income changes, the expenses change as well. So if you see slight differences, that is why. And as usual, I will be showing you my monthly budgeting spreadsheet. If you like this spreadsheet and think it might work for you, I do sell them individually on my website for just $10. And it includes the template I'm going to show you today, as well as a bunch of other trackers. So I will leave a link to that in the description if you're interested. And as a reminder, all of my templates and trackers are always included in any of my coaching packages as well. So let's get started and see how January actually turned out. As always, we will start with my income since that is what's allocated throughout the entire budget. And you can see that I had about $4,180 of expected income for the month of January, and that actually ended up being just slightly higher at $4,185. So I basically have $6 extra of income compared to what I expected that will be allocated throughout my budget. Next, let's move on to my fixed expenses, which I will run through really quickly because most of these are exactly what I budgeted. So for my rent, my car payment, my Wi-Fi, both my gym and my Orange Theory Fitness, my business subscriptions, my Amazon Music subscription, my Hulu, and my iTunes all were exactly as budgeted. There was no differences between these. And then when we get to the utilities, that's where a little bit of difference came in. So my utilities was a tiny bit higher than expected, about $10 over. So that is reflected here. And then my insurance, both my car insurance and my renter's insurance, was exactly as expected. Next, we get into the variable expenses, and this is where knowing your actual numbers is probably the most important, because this is where a lot of the differences are going to occur. So the first category is eating out, and in this category I had budgeted $200 and ended up spending about $187. So I'm under budget here, which I'm actually really happy about, because this category used to be one that I really struggled staying on budget with, so that's always a good accomplishment. And then the next category is auto. Like I mentioned before, this is mainly just gas and then the occasional tolls that I have to pay. So I budgeted $50 for the month of January and ended up spending $45 and a penny. So slightly under budget here as well, and I expect this category to be even lower in the next couple of months because this did include a trip from Pensacola back to Orlando, so a little bit more spending than usual. So the next category is groceries, and this is the one that I had a little bit more trouble with compared to the other ones, which I talked a little bit about in my February budget with me. But I had budgeted $250 for January, and I ended up spending about $275, so about $25 over budget, which I'm not entirely surprised about. I think we've all noticed grocery prices and just prices in general increasing across the board. And like I mentioned in my February budget with me, I go shopping every other week, so most of the time that's 2 trips a month. And previously that had averaged about $40 to $50, and recently those trips have been costing more like $50 to $75. So that's where this increase is coming from. And I've made changes to my February budget to account for this because I do think it's something that's going to continue. So that needs to be reflected in our budgets. And then lastly is my miscellaneous category, and this really just includes everything else that doesn't fall within those other 3 categories. So I had budgeted $50 for January and ended up spending about $32. So once again, under budget in this category. And then I do have another line item here for my checking account cushion, but I will talk about this at the end because I think this is where I'm going to put my couple of remaining dollars. So I will come back to this one. So for all of my expenses, my variable and my fixed expenses, I had budgeted to spend $3,017.77, and ended up spending $3,017.99. So basically I was spot on and just over budget by 22 cents. Now let's go through a summary of my sinking funds, and you can see on this monthly budget particular template, this only shows my allocations because that's where this specific income is going towards. It's being allocated to my sinking funds. This does not show the spending that I did within any of my sinking funds or the balances of where I began or where I ended. So I'm actually going to switch to an overall sinking fund summary that shows me my allocations, what I spent, and my ending balances. So for my first category, my clothes and beauty category, I had originally budgeted to put $25 into this sinking fund, and I actually ended up only putting $10 towards this fund, which I'll talk more about in a second. But there was a category that I originally hadn't put anything towards, but ended up doing some spending within, so I needed to allocate a little bit more to that fund. So within this sinking fund, I did do a little bit of spending. I ended up spending $31.40, which I believe was a couple beauty purchases. So I had started the month with about $41 in this category, and then with my allocations and the spending, I ended the month with just under $20 in this account. And then the next one is my fund category, and this is the category where I originally hadn't budgeted to put anything towards this fund because at the time I wasn't expecting to do any spending here, but I did end up doing some spending. I bought a couple of tickets for a Florida gymnastics meet, and I think there was like a Target trip in here as well. So I realized that I needed to put a little bit towards this. So I decided to switch up my allocations a little bit to be able to put a little bit towards this fund. So I decided to put $15 into this sinking fund in January. And then you can see the spending that I mentioned. So I spent $39.42 within this category. So the starting balance for this fund is actually zero, as it is for a couple of the other categories as well. And because this is my January starting balances, but also the starting balance for 2022, I made it a point at the end of the year to bring any of these funds that were negative back to positive. So that's why quite a few of them are zero. So we started the month at zero and then ended the month at a negative about $25. And then something else real quick that I want to point out is that all of these funds are kept in the same account. So since my sinking fund went negative, that doesn't mean I have a negative bank account or anything like that. They're all kept within the same bank account. So if one goes negative, it's okay because all the other ones are acting as a buffer to account for that. And then my next category is my holiday/gifts, which I'm doing $50 a month for. So I have $600 by the end of the year to spend on Christmas. And I actually put $50 towards it. And there was actually some spending in this category. I spent about $64 for a late Christmas present that had been sold out in December. So I did do some spending, and I actually did end with a negative balance within this account. However, I do have a couple Venmo transactions that are outstanding from payments from like my sisters when we split Christmas presents. So I'm not worried about this being negative. I know we'll go positive in the next couple of months. And then my next category is household. This is a very unexciting category. I didn't budget or put anything towards this in January, and I also didn't spend anything. So my balance started at zero and also ended at zero. And then the next one is Nico's category. So I budgeted to put $85 into this fund and actually did put $85 into this fund. There was also some spending, which was a vet visit, so I spent about $105. So this sinking fund at the beginning of the year in the month started at about $33, and we are ending with $12.32 in this account. And the next is my car maintenance fund, which I've mentioned before, I'm not actively putting anything more towards because I'm happy with the buffer I have, given the fact that my car is fairly new and I don't expect many repairs or much maintenance needed. So this account started at $200 at the beginning of the month and also ended at $200. And the next is my medical fund. So I budgeted to put $25 towards this fund and then did actually put $25 into it, and I didn't end up spending anything. And then this account was the one account that I wasn't able to bring up to positive. So it started at almost negative $10, but with the allocation that I made in January, we are back to positive at $15.39. And the next is my tech category, which I'm mainly just using to reimburse my emergency fund that I had used to bring this account back to positive. So I'm budgeting $50 a month towards this. I actually did put those $50 into it, but they're not actually going to stay in that fund. It's being moved to my emergency fund to replenish it. So that's why there is a spent $50. I spent it out of this sinking fund and put it towards my emergency fund. So started the month out at zero and also ending it at zero. And then the next two are just my yearly subscriptions. So I always put $10 a month towards my Amazon Prime membership. And then there's no spending within this category because that bill does not come out till September. So I started the month at basically $40 and ended at nearly $50. And then the next one is my Crunch renewal, my gym yearly renewal. So I always put $5 a month towards that. And again, this bill doesn't come out till March, so no spending within that category. Started the month at $42.82. and ended the month at $47.82. So that was all of the movement between my sinking funds. I had budgeted to put $250 towards them, and I did. And I ended up spending in total about $290. So that did make my overall sinking fund balance go down. I had started January with $347 and ended at $306. So now going back to my monthly budget, the next section is my savings section. And unfortunately, I didn't have anything to put towards this right now. My main goal is anything extra I can put towards my student loans, but there wasn't anything significant left over. So this one is just 0 for January. And then the next section is my debt section and my minimum student loan payment, which was budgeted for $911, and of course that payment was $911. And then lastly is the overview section, where I can see whether or not I allocated all of my income, and we can see here that I'm in the red. I actually have $5.77 that I did not allocate that are still waiting to be given a job, which makes sense because remember, we did have about $6 of extra income compared to my expected. So since this is such a small amount, I'm not going to put it towards my student loan fund. I'm actually just going to put it in my checking account cushion. So I'm going to go over here to my actual checking account cushion and put the $577 in there. And then now we can see that the overview section checks to 0. That means we've allocated all the income for the month. And that is it for my January budget recap. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. And if you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And also don't forget to subscribe so you can see more videos like this from me. And also check out my Instagram so you can get more content from me in between YouTube videos. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.